Hi guys, this is Weiman and I'm a Diamond 2 support and AD player, and this is an extensive guide on where to ward in solo queue. I will only be going over green wards this game, but in the future I would also like to make a pink ward guide. First, I will be going over the lane wards in the early game. In the bottom lane on the blue side, the three main warding spots are at the dragon, the tri-bush, and the far lane bush. Early game I typically prioritize warding first the river, then the tri-bush, and then the lane. The river gank is probably the most common, so that is why I ward it first. This leaves the gank through the tri-bush open, but ideally someone can ward this entrance. Often in solo queue there will be many times that will not be warded, so you will have to ward the tri-bush. I might prioritize warding the tri-bush when the enemy mid lane is fed, or he has a high potential to roam, or I feel I will not be pushing my lane. For lane ganks, it is going to be champion dependent. For example, if the enemy jungler is Warwick pre-6 or their support is Soraka, it is unlikely they can pull a gank off. But if they have something like Lee Sin or Thresh, they might be able to do something. Lane ganks can often be hard to pull off early, but after the jungler hits 6, they are much easier to pull off because of their ult. So during that time you need to be aware of the possibility of a lane gank. Most junglers are going to hit 6 a little after 7 minutes, but the time does vary depending on whether they're picking up kills or picking up lane experience. Otherwise, I ward the lane early on only when I feel the extra vision significantly helps our trading or fighting 2v2 or hinders the opponent's trading or fighting 2v2. The deep wards for blue side bot lane that you can place are here and at blue. Here it only gives you vision of lane ganks and it should prevent the majority of them. But it is easier to ward because you can place it from lane. I only ward it from lane when I know the opponent cannot engage on me, so like when their bot lane is low and you know where the jungler is, or when there's no one currently there. You can also ward this from the jungle, but if you're going to end up going so far in, it is typically just better to ward the blue buff. The blue buff ward gives you vision of both river ganks and lane ganks, and even can give you vision when their jungler is farming camps, but it is more risky to ward. You shouldn't deep ward unless you know that the enemy cannot catch you out. Something like the jungler and support is dead, or the jungler is topside and mid and bot are both pushed in and low. There are two spots that you can place the blue buff ward. In this bush, it helps you contest blue buff a little easier, so early in the game I would probably put it in this bush. Make sure you're warding toward the right side of the bush so you can maximize jungle vision. Later on, I would put it here because it gives deeper vision so that you can push out farther. If you're just stealing blue, like you're setting up to do it before you get there, then you should put the ward out here because you don't need vision of the blue and it helps you set up a pick or decide if you need to get out. Common poor warding spots are this bush here and warding over the wall here. You shouldn't ward here unless you need vision right away because it doesn't really give you vision of ganks through the jungle, and putting a ward at dragon just gives you earlier vision of ganks from the river. Both these can be warded if you feel that someone is going to gank by jumping over the wall, like J4, Lee Sin, or Shaco. And this should be the only reason that you ward this spot, because a jungler who's lane ganking should not cross this spot unless he is going to jump over the wall. For purple side top lane, the wards are essentially the same except you rarely ward in the lane. On purple side bot lane, the main warding spots are the tri-bush, this lane bush, and at dragon. I like to ward this bush early on when I only have one ward at my disposal because it gives you vision of ganks from the jungle and the river. If you want to, you can ward it outside of the bush in this area, but you should make sure you prioritize as much vision of the jungle gank as possible because warding out here gives you an even amount of vision of both ganks, while placing over here, you get significantly more river vision and significantly less jungle vision. If the mid lane is warded or you're confident on your ability to play without the river vision, then you can ward the tri-bush. If you have at least 2 wards and you're pushing, then you should ward the tri-bush because many junglers can still gank through this ward. If I'm not pushing, I will still ward this bush just to make sure I get some vision of ganks because many junglers can still gank from here, even if you're farming in just this area. If you're warding the tri-bush, you should also have a ward for river ganks. Ideally, you or your mid can just ward this area. If not, you can ward the dragon or this area. If I decide to make the walk to dragon, I often just ward this because it helps out mid lane and it doesn't add too much time. Lane warding is just the same as the blue side. If you feel that you're going to get dove, you can also ward this. For deep wards, your options are at the bush at golems or this bush. The bush at golems can essentially stop most lane ganks and is a little easier to ward. This ward can give you vision of both lane ganks and jungle ganks, but it is more risky to ward. Early on, you want to ward on this side of the bush because it gives you a little vision on red, and getting that extra deep vision doesn't affect much. Later in the game, it is better to ward in the middle area because it gives more deep vision, which is going to help for pushing. As with the other deep wards, you should only be warding when you know you're not going to get caught. Top lane blue side should be the same, except you rarely ward the lane. For mid lane, the warding should be the same on both blue and purple side. Ideally, you want to ward the wraiths in this bush. For the wraiths, you want to ward around here so that gives you vision up to this bush, vision of the wraiths, and still gives general vision of where the jungler is going when he ganks. The ward here toward the top is better because it gives better vision of the jungle and vision of mid doing blue, but it can be placed toward the bottom for better river vision. This ward can also be an option if you're behind and feel that you need extra river vision and vision in your jungle, or you don't feel safe warding deeper. This ward is similar to the one that I just mentioned and was decent in the past, but it can be dangerous to ward because a pink ward in this spot can see it. These two wards can also be an option if you feel that you don't have the time or is dangerous to ward deeper. This ward is very common in high levels of play because it gives vision of the blue transfer, vision of jungle ganks, and the ability to pick off opponents in this area. In lower levels of play, it might not be as ideal because it doesn't give vision of where the jungler went through the river, which can be problematic for some players. The deep wards for mid are here and here. This ward is the best deep ward in the game because it is one of the only deep wards that gives vision on a small camp, and because Wraith Camp is farmed more often compared to other small camps, you will see the jungler more often. This ward is also good for setting up Dragon on blue side and Baron on purple side, and is a good choke point for setting up picks.